Welcome back, everybody. It's been a minute. It's been a few months. So, gosh, I got you got a new background, but I don't think you're at Autzen right now. I'm in a new house, so yeah, a lot of changes. Kind of delayed our recording, but we're back. This is Draft Dive. We are going to be talking, I think, about some of the players in this early in the college season here in 2021, people who are catching our eye and see what's going on. So yeah, Ken, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's nice to be back. Jonah and I have had a lot of life happen recently, and we're ready to come back and give something to you guys. We're going to try to be on weekly from now on and just kind of talk about the players that, like Jonah said, are catching our eye, not catching our eye, are impressing, aren't impressing. Kind of just, how are they moving up or down our draft boards as the season progresses?
Yeah, and hey, the website's been going well. We've been able to balance that, but yeah, actually getting together to record has been tough because yeah, moving takes a bit, and I mean, yeah, just a lot of stuff. But here we are, back for college football.
Yeah, it was an exciting week one. I mean, I don't know if you got to watch as
I
many
call
games
it
as I did.
week 1.5.
Okay. I don't know if you got to see as many games as I did, but I mean, I had my DVR on full record and I've been watching games 24/7.
I didn't. I don't have a DVR, so I just had to watch live, live
Well, you
sports.
can break into mine for now on.
Okay, perfect. And I got my cat here, so he might pop up. All right, but yeah, let's jump in. I mean, well, how about we talk about guys in the background there, Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, the big news this week for Oregon was Thibodeau going down. I mean, he
Yeah,
looked before he got hurt, the first half of the game, he looked everything as impressive as we thought he would. I mean, he had one sack. I think it was he had the strip fumble,
yep,
and he was dominating.
yeah. I
But
mean,
unfortunately got hurt. I think it was just an ankle sprain from what I read today. But I will be monitoring that throughout the week.
yeah, that's what they're calling it, I believe, right now is just kind of well, they haven't specified sprain, but ankle injury doesn't seem like it's too serious, which obviously, hopefully not. I think he was our unanimous number one player. We both agreed he's the best player in college football.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, that doesn't happen that we agree all the time.
No,
We politely disagree quite often. So I mean that says something about this kid. With his injury, Joan, I don't know how you feel about it, but once I saw it, I immediately thought of like Nick Bosa and said, "Is this going to be an injury that just sits for the rest of the year because he doesn't need to improve his draft stock?"
no, I mean, I I think he's going to play. I think he
I do
wants to
too.
play. Anything's possible if it's maybe a little worse than we think. I mean, I'm not going to fault the guy for sitting out, but
You
and
know,
not, potentially crippling himself or,
when they're that
causing
good,
serious damage to their leg.
I can't fault him. That being said, if he did play, it would just be another reason I like him a little bit more than Bosa. Because I mean, I just like that. Football's a tough sport, and I like guys that play it. But I understand the business side of it too.
Yeah, I just think, I don't know. I get the feeling that he wants to win. Bigger picture for Oregon, of course, we focus more on their players, but just as a team, quarterback looks a little questionable. I mean, I now live in Eugene, so I got, you know, hear a lot of Duck stuff. My brother went to the game. He's a U of O alum and all the family. But yeah, the quarterback, they weren't able to dominate Fresno State the way they wanted to. Though I
Yeah,
think
no.
Fresno State they're always better than people think. Maybe that's the best way. They're not a cupcake team.
No, and you know what? When we're talking about draft and talking about talent, they produce some NFL talent. Every now and then they really shoot out a superstar. I mean, a Devonta Adams, you know, David Carr back in the day. They produced some talent. I mean, I know you recently spotlighted a gentleman who plays for him that really caught your eye. What did you think of him in this game?
Yeah, so Aaron Mosby. I saw again kind of the week one back a week ago before everyone played basically. He had a big game against Hawaii, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. He looked really good. I was like, let's did a little more research. He looked good in his pass film, and I was like, all right, I gotta see what this guy does against Oregon because, you know, that's a high level of talent. All due respect to Hawaii, they're not the University of Oregon when it comes to talent. So, and he had a great game. He had a strip sack as well.
Yeah, I think he had 8 tackles as well between solo and assisted. He played lights out as well. But I wasn't really watching him until you threw his name on the radar.
Yeah, I it's hard to find stuff on him online. That's kind of the crazy thing. I went digging and was able to find some film of previous years, pretty good at digging, but this guy is really under the radar, and man, I'm falling in love pretty quickly. This guy is awesome.
I think if I remember right, you said he was a little bit undersized, maybe a tweener right now. What did he weigh? What does he weigh?
I mean, it's, different sites say different things, so it's kind of tough. I'd say probably 245 to 250. So, I mean, really, he's linebacker sized, and he's played linebacker, and that's another thing. He's moved positions a few times. Maybe that's what's tough. He was a receiver coming out of high school, was a DB initially for Fresno State, and now is like a linebacker / end for him.
Yeah, so like we're looking at this kid as a potential 3-4 outside linebacker who can actually cover, not just blitz, be very useful in a versatile 3-4 defense. Somebody that likes to run some zone blitzes, etc., and mix it up. He can kind of fill all those roles. I mean, imagine a guy coming at you from the outside who can get the sack, but can also drop back and actually make a catch on the ball. You have to worry about him. And if he's a receiver in the past, he's going to be able to pull the ball down.
And so in the past, I was able to see some of his picks because he's got some picks. And yeah, looks very comfortable covering. I think I wrote his 95-yard, like, take it to the house, pick 6 was against, oh shoot, I forget who it was, but it's a tight end who's in the NFL right now. So he was covering an NFL tight end
and did his job.
Took the ball and went and scored a touchdown with it. So no, this guy, he's really interesting, and I know he's probably not gonna make it to, say, even day 2 conversation with the little bit I can find on him now, but he's a guy I really want to watch, and seems like a really, looks really good on film athletically. So I think he could put up some nice numbers at the combine if he gets there. And yeah, I'm interested. I'm going to be watching Aaron Mosby, and that's Aaron with 2 R's, not 2 A's.
Which you corrected me on this week already.
It's tough to find. You got to make sure 2 R's, not 2 A's.
Yeah. So I mean, there's one sleeper we already found kind of early in the season, and hopefully, just like every other year, we're usually right on these, and we're usually ahead of everybody else. So for those of you that don't know that, start paying attention to what we say maybe. And 4 months from now, 5 months from now, at the end of the year, when you start hearing all the guys you watch on ESPN talk about these guys, maybe you'll realize that they're basically just listening to us and a couple guys like ourselves and regurgitating our own words. In that Oregon game, though, we talked about Thibodeau, we talked about Mosby. The running game looked pretty good for Oregon. But they sure did spread the ball around. I didn't expect that many touches for each of their backs. That kind of made me wonder, what is Verdell? He's the guy we should be talking about as a potential mid to late round pick next year. And I don't know if he's going to hold up to it unless they kind of say he's the guy.
I think athletically, he's still going to be at worst, maybe a day 2, maybe early day 3 pick. I mean, even if he doesn't get a lot of touches, just because he's legit athlete at the position. So, a lot of people were speculating that maybe Oregon kept it really simple, really vanilla, maybe, spread the ball out because they've got the big game this week coming up against Ohio State, and they didn't want to tip their hand.
I got
So
you.
that's a possibility that they were just kind of, you know, let's give everyone some carries. Because we're not going to show what we're going to do against Ohio State. So that's a possibility, but yeah, I think Verdell's legit.
Well, and then this was our quarterback's first game for them, right?
Yeah, fifth-year senior.
So maybe that's the reason too, breaking him into their offense. But like I said, it's pretty much speculation unless we hear from the source. I just want to see Verdell be a little bit more of the guy for him. If he's not, it makes me wonder why he's not, because he is, like you said, athletically gifted. He has the tools. So when they continue to spread the ball around as much as they did to that many backs in a close game, I mean, if it was a blowout, I'd understand. But when they were struggling to win the game, I expect your guy to get the ball.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I wasn't trying to say, that they were just like playing their second or third string just because, they expected to be running over him. But I mean, it's kind of crazy, especially with the past few years of recruiting. Their second and third string are probably at worst 4-star recruits. So they also probably want to get those guys, some experience and get them ready because they're going to be starting. Oregon's been blowing it out of the water with recruiting.
They have, and they are again this year.
Yeah.
But there's one other guy I want to ask you about in this game. He's a guy that caught my eye last year when we were reviewing tape for last year's draft, and it's McKinley, the defensive back, safety. And he really caught my eye last year. And how did he stand out on film to you at all in this game?
He didn't really stand out there. No, I mean, he actually didn't.
He just did his job.
Yeah, he didn't stand out in a negative way, so that's good.
Yeah,
maybe it's kind of like an offensive lineman. If you get noticed, it's usually not for something good.
Well, we can probably, unless there's somebody else that you really want to talk about from that game. A couple of the other guys that are on our watch list are for draft in the future. They have a couple of really talented sophomores, but we can't talk about them quite yet. I'd be willing to step into the Michigan State game a little bit because Kenneth Walker. I mean, this kid, I know people are noticing him already. I know people have been talking about him a little bit. I mean, he's on the preseason Doak Walker watch list, but he hadn't really crossed my radar too much. I mean, he only had 1,200 yards in his first 2 years combined, but he came out and put up 270 yards and 4 touchdowns against a Northwestern team who we've known to be a pretty stout defense for a while now. And they didn't look good. He ran all over them.
Yeah, Northwestern, of course, has had some quality defensive players go into the, NFL and go pretty, day 1, day 2 picks in the NFL. So they're, in my mind, and maybe in some other people are still like, oh, it's Northwestern, but I got to remember the, NFL quality talent they've been producing. So they're a legit school.
That's what you and I are trying to do. We're not always talking about who's the best team. We're talking about where's this talent coming. And Northwestern produces some talent, and they really produced it on the defensive side of the ball a lot. I mean, you may not notice them coming out in the first and second all the time, but they produce a lot of mid to late round picks that play pretty decent or become good role players. And I mean, he just walked through this defense, a usually well-coached defense. And the other guy outside Walker that really stood out to me in this game was Northwestern safety Brandon Joseph, who a lot of people are high on. And I thought he looked really bad. I thought he took bad lines. He made weak attempts at some tackles. I don't think he's as good as a lot of people think he is. I think he can cover the top end, but I would not draft him expecting him to tackle a running back very often.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, well, you said the stat line. I mean, guy destroyed him. Walker just did whatever he wanted out there. So, obviously, gotta see, Walker's not gonna put up 250 yards every game, probably.
Probably. We'll
put expectations on him. Yeah, but to watch him going forward, and then watch the Joseph, going forward as well, just to see if maybe this was just, I mean, was this just a game where the game plan was so far off that it just fell apart? I don't know.
I'm going to go out early in the year and say that I don't think Joseph's going to become a top safety. Like I said, when I watched him last year, even he has some really good gameplay on the pass defense. Like when he's playing deep and he's able to read the field, he can read the quarterback's eyes and make some plays on the ball. No doubt about it. But you can't be one dimensional to be an NFL safety anymore. You got to be able to do a little bit of both. And I don't trust him to make a one-on-one tackle or take the right line. And I know it's only week 1, but I didn't see any improvement from what I saw in last year. And so with a whole spring behind us now and being able to be coached up, I almost felt like he regressed in his tackling. And I know some people might not agree, but man, I watch every play. When I watch these guys, I watch the game again. I think I watched Michigan State game 3 times now. I wanted to make sure before I talk smack on Joseph that I was catching the right plays. But that really caught my attention because I know a lot of people have him projected, like top 2 or 3 safety behind Hamilton. And I'm not seeing it. Unless you want to let him just play deep center field and not expect him to make a tackle, I wouldn't take him that early.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about taking him early, but I will say I'd rather have a safety who can defend a pass than who could tackle.
I want both.
Well, sure, but if I'm choosing, I've seen too much bad pass defense in my life already, so just guard the guy. Yeah, so let's see. What other games we got? I mean, I've got the UCLA LSU game.
Yeah, and I know you're really high on somebody in that game, so why don't you go ahead and take the reins right there?
I mean, holy crap. This guy, Zach Charbonnet, he came out of nowhere. It'll sound a little weird when I talk about him a bit because he didn't really come out of nowhere, but I mean, I was looking at, some preseason lists on some good sites, and this guy's, number 450 or something. And legit, if he plays like he does, I don't know that he's not the first running back off the board, because it's not just that he's putting up good numbers, because he is. He's putting up a crazy per carry average. He's carrying the ball, 10, 12 times a game and getting 100 yards and multiple touchdowns, but he just runs.
Well, and
violent.
Once again, they played Hawaii, but then they also played LSU, so you can't go back and say, oh, it was just against Hawaii. LSU should be on a come up from what they were last year. And, he made them look pathetic.
Yeah, I might have messed up. I said when I said Fresno played Hawaii in week 1, they played a weaker team in week 1, but it must not have been Hawaii. That must have been UCLA. So sorry about that. It's escaping my mind right now.
It's okay.
But yeah, so exactly. So he just destroys Hawaii. And it's like, holy cow, look at this guy. Look at him run. Okay, well, LSU's next up on the schedule. Let's see how he looks against LSU, who, even if they're, I don't know, maybe it's a down year for LSU, maybe their program doesn't win a ton, they're still sending a bunch of people to the NFL. I mean,
yeah, 100%.
When the program's bad, they still got real good players on it.
I mean, we can name 3 or 4 guys right now at their defense that should be NFL players next year, and they let him run amok. And yeah. Just for your information, Fresno State actually plays UCLA next week. So next week you can just put the 2 together.
Oh, Mosby versus Charbonnet. Oh, man. This is good. I like that. But no, you
didn't plan that?
No, I actually didn't. These were 2 guys that were awesome. But the way he runs, it's not like a fluke, if that, you know what I mean. These carries aren't flukish carries. And so I went back because he's got 2 games this season. So it looks awesome, but obviously want to watch a little more than 2 games of tape on him. So his freshman year, he was Michigan Wolverine, was their leading rusher his freshman year. I think it was like 750 yards, nothing crazy, but he did add 11 touchdowns, freshman record for Michigan, and he looked good. I mean, running pretty much the same, and then I don't know what happened, but his sophomore year, they really went to running back by committee and had him kind of low on the committee.
Well, and last year was the COVID year. I mean, let's be honest. I'm throwing a lot of things out last year, unless it's something that you can obviously see on the tape, where when they're going running back by committee or their teams playing odd schedules because they had off weeks. Like, I'm not holding those against the players.
Yeah,
That's not necessarily their fault. So a lot of that could just be erased for me. I was listening to a lot of announcers this week actually be like, hey, like, erase this. This team is not this team. They had a bad year last year. Like in the Minnesota game, they kept alluding to the fact this is not the 3-win on the Minnesota team from last season. This is closer to the team that won 10 games the year prior.
yeah, Minnesota's a legit team, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, if Ibrahim is healthy or out, that's going to change their perspectives for me. Obviously, I think he's a game changer. But back to your boy here at UCLA. I mean, yeah, you just mentioned it. He's averaging like 14 yards per touch. Well, maybe like
Yeah,
17 if you count his 35-yard reception too.
yeah.
He's got 17 carries for like 220 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yep, scoring on 1 out of every 4 runs.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead and sign me up for those stats. I don't care if you play fantasy or not. Put that guy on my team and let him walk away with it. And
Yeah,
we've talked about another running back already too. And next year, where do these guys fall?
tough to say. I mean, again, you never know what teams are going to fall in love with, but gosh, his running style just translates so well. I mean, he's athletic and he just bowls people over. He broke a dude's back in high school when he lowered his shoulder and ran over him, who is fine, by the way. That's again the disclaimer to that. He's, that gentleman is fine. But yeah, he tried to tackle him and had his back broken. So that's the kind of runner he is. And he's quick. He's hitting the hole correctly. I mean, again, he looks like this freak athlete who's running over people. So, I mean, I can see him being a pretty early, just because he's a running back, maybe day 2 pick.
Yeah, and I can tell you're excited about him, and it's getting me excited. I love your enthusiasm there. I feel like we're starting to look, coming into the year, some of these backs that already just in week 1 and even in the spring, we started watching through training camp, like their spring practices and fall practices. There's some guys starting to already pop up that necessarily weren't that high on a lot of people's lists. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how these running backs change in our rankings throughout the season. And this first week, some of the guys that you would have thought would have came out and just put on a show really didn't. So we need to see something out of those guys if they want to stay at the top of the list.
Yeah, there were some disappointing performances, definitely. I mean, the biggest thing that stood out to me was disappointment in quarterbacks. Man,
100% on board with that statement, friend.
this was not a good week for projected first round quarterbacks. I mean, our number 1 quarterback, Howell, oof, yikes. Got to play better than that, buddy. Rattler, bad game. I mean,
Who I'm not high on, so I'm okay with that one.
His numbers look better than the game was, because that's a game I watched, and he should have had an extra interception tacked on there. I mean, they should have lost to Tulane. So there.
Well, that makes me feel good because, as you know, I'm not a fan of his, and I don't think he's a bad football player. But there's just some of that bias, that personal bias. I watched him on the show QB1. I didn't like him. I just don't like him as a teammate. And so for me as a GM, and that's the part I think scouts need to make sure we talk about, is this is how I would build a team. He's not my quarterback of choice.
Yeah.
I do like Hal, as you do too. And actually, I thought Hal played better than his stat line showed in some of the game. He was really being gritty. He was really trying. And I made this statement to you over the phone a while back that I don't think Hal's going to have a great year because he lost all of the talent around him. So if he does produce, it's all because of him. Yeah, he lost Diami Brown. He lost Newsome. He lost both his running backs. He's not, North Carolina doesn't have a great offensive line in the first place. So if he does produce this year, I think it just goes to show how good he really is. But he's going to have to win the games. And for instance, his third interception this week was purely him fighting through a sack, trying to whip it to a receiver, and a defender made a good catch. But I can't blame him because in that situation, if he takes a sack, there's no way they're converting on fourth and 30 afterwards anyway. Where people don't really look at those sometimes and be like, oh, that interception is kind of a fluffer on the stat lines.
Yeah.
One of my guys, as we're on the quarterbacks, that I haven't even seen his game yet. I recorded it tonight so I could watch it. But because you brought up quarterbacks, I just pulled his stats up. Looks like he had a pretty good night. And without having seen it, I can't say for sure if it's right, but just off his stat lines, I think he's making me look pretty good as the fact that I think he should be the one or two quarterback taken off the board next year. And that's Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. And I'm just looking here. He had 66% completion percentage, 380 yards, 1 touchdown, ran for another 50, and scored a touchdown on the ground.
So, that sounds like a good game.
Better than most of the other top quarterbacks right now. So
it definitely
outside of
was.
Ritter, I think Desmond Ritter over there at Cincinnati had a big week, but no other major quarterbacks looked great.
Yeah, no, it was an odd week. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. And then JT Barrett, of course, too, who was, JT
Daniels.
Oh, yeah, JT Daniels, man.
I got your back.
I get too many names that are, JT Barrett was like a football player, maybe from Wisconsin from like a decade ago, so it's stuck
Ohio
in my
State.
head. Oh, okay, see, there we go. It was white
You've been
and red.
sick, I'll give it to you.
Well, my brain works a little differently. I'm seeing like the white and red uniform or gray and red Ohio State, and I'm like, Wisconsin? Yeah, that sounds right. But anyways, yeah, that was just a nothing game. But he's a projected first rounder by a lot of people. And
not by us.
Well, no, but not a lot to judge him on there.
I thought he was pathetic. I thought he was going to look bad. It looked like they were afraid to let him do anything with the ball in the first place. And I'm looking at his games from last year and saying, how? Like, did they just say, whatever, go do what you want? Because they sure as heck did not come out and put any trust in him this weekend.
Yeah. So, again, something to watch going forward. But
I guess they were down their top 3 receivers. So,
yeah. And then, I really like Tulane's quarterback, but he's a freshman. But
got some time to go.
Let's keep an eye on him for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think you and I need to actually start making a little bit of more notes on future players rather than waiting till the year they're in there. There's a few underclassmen right now that I wish we could talk about already because there's some killer underclassmen right now, and they've been more exciting to watch this week than a lot of the upperclassmen.
Well, they're small school guys, so Tulane quarterback.
Was there any other game that really caught your attention from a draft standpoint this week? Like maybe some clashing of major talent. You talked about JT Daniels a little bit. Justin Ross on the other side was, to me, just impressive that he played, and I'm happy to see him back. I wrote him up in that article today, and I expect to see him kind of get on track next week.
I was hoping to see a little better. But it was a weird game, man.
Quarterback's got to get the ball out of his hands to make a receiver do anything.
And I get it. And I'm not saying it's on him. I'm not writing him off after a week or anything. But
I was just happy to see him back.
It was a weird game. So yeah, let's watch. Obviously, that was kind of my point. I was like, all right, I want to see what Ross does, and then I was like, oh, this game is not fun. This is not the offensive scouting game. But other games, every single player from Alabama.
Oh, they're
okay. Jesus Christ. They ran them out of that game. Oof.
With a freshman quarterback in his first game, didn't even look like they were trying to open up the floodgates. Like they were still, and they just walked over him. You mentioned it. Every player, Will Anderson, Lane, Harris, Mathis. They've got Job and Battle. They don't have a weak link. Their offensive line might be their weakest link, and it's not weak.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've got at least one first rounder on that offensive line. So,
Yeah, and I mean, and they benched this tight end that everybody's raving about for next year because he doesn't fit the Alabama gameplay, and he didn't play till the second half, Billingsley, and the guy who starts has 2 touchdowns in the first half. I mean, Alabama, not even from a draft point. I'm just gonna say I'm not a Roll Tide or Crimson Tide fan because I usually root for an underdog, but I don't know who can beat them.
yeah, I mean, I'm not a Bama fan. I'm not from the South, but they're
In past years, I thought somebody
freakish.
had a chance to beat them, but this year I don't even know if it's a possibility.
Any given Saturday, you never know. But man,
Yeah,
yeah, they look great. And then I guess on the other side, what Miami, Bolden, you
got
had
ejected
written
early
up
for the
Bolden.
targeting.
Yeah,
And I don't know if you saw the tackle he got thrown out for, but he literally did what I said. He just leads with his shoulder, doesn't wrap, and he stopped and threw his head down and got thrown for targeting. He had already missed a tackle a couple plays prior to that where he took a bad line and dove without his arms for the running back, and the running back just kind of stepped over where his arms would have been. I like Bolden. I really do. He has a lot of physical ability, a lot of talent. I just want to see, and it's not just him, it's a lot of players. I want to see fundamental tackling. Very few guys do it nowadays, but the guys that do it play in the NFL. They really do. They go there and play in the NFL. And then they keep learning how to be better. I mean, look at guys like Darius Leonard. Look at the Seahawks teams of the past. Look at how good of a tackling secondary they had. And they call it hawk tackling, and they teach it at a lot of football camps. And I'm starting to wonder why none of these college kids are using it anymore.
that I can't tell you. But yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, Alabama was already beating them up a little bit, and this was early in the game. But then when Bolden went out, it did. Even if he's missing a couple tackles, it definitely hurt their defense to have him on the sideline.
Yeah,
And
it felt like it took some of the air out of their lungs. It just hurt them all around.
yeah, so yeah, that was. I mean, that just showed Alabama's dominance, is what that showed. So
They were so good.
pick someone from Alabama, I guess. Good for them.
I thought Harris did look good. Somebody that you and I are both really
Yeah,
high on. We both have
yeah,
him as a
he
top
played
10
well.
player, and he's
He had
still
that goal
scratching the
line stand.
surface. Yeah, he in a sack. He's scratching the surface of how good he's going to be. I mean, this is only his 3rd season playing linebacker, and he is phenomenal. He is athletic. He's an ex-corner and wide receiver for those of you that don't know. And he can cover. He can run man coverage pretty well. He needs to work on his zone a little bit. But, man, he can tackle. And he tackles right. And when he doesn't wrap up, it's because he does have an open hard hit, and he lays guys out. And I love, if you're going to take a shot with your shoulder, you better make sure you throw a hit. Not let the wide receiver running back bounce off you and get 12 more yards. And Harris does that. And I really love watching that kid play.
Don't shoulder tackle sharp enough. But no, he's the rich man's Aaron Mosby.
Harris?
Yeah, the rich man's Mosby.
I look at him as a stronger Darius Leonard, and I'm a Colts fan devoutly, and Leonard is, I mean, he's just a machine, the maniac. And when I watch him cover and what he can do in coverage and where he can line up all over the field and blitz, Leonard's the only 4-3 linebacker that's like that in the NFL right now. Like where he can actually blitz and get sacks. He can drop into coverage and break up passes. He gets you 10 tackles a game. And I can see Harris being an amazing outside linebacker in a 4-3. Not saying he can't play the inside, but boy, he could just be something dangerous right there along the lines of like Leonard or Miles Jack type guy.
Yeah, he's going to be, I mean, interesting to watch. I mean, well, obviously we had him in the top 10 prospects. We expect him already to be a first rounder. So, yeah.
Who's the player, whether there's somebody that jumped off the screen that we didn't have high or you didn't really have high yet, or we already had them ranked highly, but they just basically just looked so good you have to talk about them this week? Is there another guy outside of the ones you've already mentioned?
Gosh, yeah, I've been talking up the guys that really jumped out at me because, like I said, I just watch football live, so I don't have
Okay.
10 games on DVR to watch.
I got 37.
Whew, yeah. I mean, Thibodeau, I think the difference with him going out, you know, the Ducks were up. I mean, they were up by 2 touchdowns, but that was early in the game. I think him leaving affected the team, so you could see that how big of an impact he has on that team.
Yeah, he's special. Another guy that we both think is special, but I don't know if you really got to watch it, was the Notre Dame Florida State game, which, by the way, was one of the
Didn't get
best
to see
games
it.
I've seen in a long time. Mackenzie Milton came in and after almost 1,100 days out of the sport and led Florida State to come back and tie the game. Like it was almost tear wrenching, But Hamilton, the safety, 6'4",
Yeah.
220 pounds. I've compared him to Taylor Mays, not in the way he plays, but his size, because he's so physically gifted. But he's a better middle or center fielder than Mays was. Man, he just floats. He had 2 picks. One of them, he comes all the way across the field from the far hash and makes the interception right in front of the wide receiver as he's falling out of bounds. And it was one of the better interceptions I've seen from a safety in a long time. I mean, when I say far hash, he came from the other side of the field in what seemed like no time at all. He dropped underneath the receiver for another pick. He made a couple solid tackles on 3rd and 4, where he came down and stopped the quarterback on an option after 3 yards. He looked like the real deal for sure. And, we might be talking about him like we did Eric Berry years back. We might see a safety go in the top 5 this year. And it's not
Yeah.
because people are crazy. He is that good. He is a transcending talent at the safety position.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say is, it's weird mocking a safety so high. Even
We get so much hate for it.
It just feels so weird to do though. And it's like, no, he's one of those guys that I mean, I'd be shocked if he went outside the top 10,
Yeah, if he goes outside the top 10, I'm calling those 10 teams, like number 3 through 10, and I'm saying, hey, you want a new GM? Because you need one. I mean, this guy is ridiculously talented, and he checks all the boxes. And I think a lot of these players, the combine's so important nowadays. This coming year, some of these guys, when we see what they're truly capable of combine-wise, a guy like him is going to check all the boxes again, and teams are going to go, we can't pass this guy up. But he looked good.
I mean,
He looked
athletic
real
freak who
Another
plays really well.
Another guy in that game, since you didn't get to watch it, I want to touch on is Kevin Austin, the wide receiver, who I followed out of high school, thought he looked like a freak, big, physical, just looked like he was going to dominate. And I kind of kept following him. He just kept falling off. He didn't play really as a freshman, got suspended as a sophomore. Last year he got hurt, so he had 1 catch. And I kind of forgot about him, to be honest with you. And they threw it past him. I was like, oh, he's finally playing. And then he looked really good. He had 4 catches, 90 yards, a beautiful touchdown catch over his outside shoulder. And he just looks like he's the real deal. And he's going to develop. He's going to kind of be like their Chase Claypool replacement, I guess you would say. Big, physical outside receiver, 6'2", 200 plus. He's not quite as big as Claypool. But that Notre Dame offense is built around Williams in the backfield and their young tight end, Meyer. Well, Austin's going to be that deep threat, that other receiver that I think is going to break it up. And I think we could really see him start climbing some boards and catch some attention too. So he's another guy that I'm watching. If you guys are deep fans of the draft, I'd be keeping an eye on him as well. To be one of those guys, not necessarily going to be a top 15, top 30 or first round pick, but it could be a guy that could really climb the boards and be a day 2 or early day 3 pick and stick on a team and be a real talented player. And that's if he comes out. He might play another year. But either way, I mean, the guy's he's got the physical gifts, and it's nice to see him finally on the field. I'm also proud of him for not turning around and running away from all the problems there and being like, let's go somewhere else, like what so many players do nowadays. But he stayed. He played on the practice team. He earned his way back. And now he's kind of the go-to receiver for Brian Kelly's offense. And props to him.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. Yeah, I was trying to think of something else, but I don't know. I talked about all my guys.
I got you. I've watched more, I think, for you this week. is there any game coming up? Well, one other guy I just want to touch base on. Two guys I wrote up, if you didn't read the article today. Zach Carter from Florida played really well. A lot of question marks around him, but he definitely is on my watch list now. They run kind of a 3-4 or 3-3-5 defense. So he's a big boy. He's about 285, 290. He plays end, but he can play the 3, the 4, and the 5 technique. So I want to see him more on the 5 technique. And then I'm going to butcher this guy's name. Olakunle Fatukasi from Rutgers. He kind of caught my attention a little bit last year. I can't remember who they were playing, but he just stood out. He stood out on the film, and when one of those guys stands out when you're watching the game, where you know what I mean, where you're watching it,
Yeah.
and you're not meaning to watch him, but you can't help but want to see him every play because he does everything right. He's that guy, and he opened up the season this week with 9 tackles, 2 sacks, and just looked phenomenal yet again. And he is the same thing. Maybe not quite the level as Harris, but I could see him playing outside linebacker 3-4 or outside linebacker in 4-3, and being a pass rusher. And boy, I tell you what, this guy is somebody I'm really keeping an eye on. And as a Colts fan, we've always drafted lanky linebackers that can do a little bit of everything. And I don't think we need a guy like this, but because we do draft guys like that, I notice them. And he is most definitely on my watch list. He's probably going to get a spotlight in the next week or two. And he's well deserving. So everybody out there, Rutgers, Scarlet Knights, and you go ahead and just call him by his last name, Fatukasi, and you can try the rest yourselves because I don't like looking stupid more than once. After that, I mean, what about this coming week? Are there any games that you're really excited about, or any prospects that need to prove something this week, or that you need to make sure that they need to just rebound? Anybody in particular that you're watching?
Well, I mean, there's 2 games that I'm most interested in this week.
Let me guess one of them. Can I guess?
Yes, it's pretty obvious.
I'm going to say it's the Oregon State game. No, the Oregon game. Oregon-Ohio State.
Yes, Oregon-Ohio State, of course. I mean, it's just so many prospects that, on both sides of the field. Is Thibodeau going to come back? If he doesn't, it could be a tough week for Oregon fans and be a little sad here in Eugene. But there's just so many people to watch on both sides of the field for both teams. I mean, it's just littered with future NFL talent. So that's going to be a fun game to watch.
It is, and I know you're excited about it. I wish we could go to that one. Honestly, it'd be a great game to attend.
Yeah. My brother's going. I'll have him report.
All I heard is, "Let's go rob your brother."
We can try.
I'll do the robbing. You can just come to the game.
Right.
For those of you that don't know, I'm a monster of a man. I'm like 6'4", 330 pounds. So the Oregon-Ohio State game is definitely one I had on my watch list. I want to see both receivers. I know Stroud played pretty well and got the ball out there. I thought Wilson missed a few plays that he should have made on some screen passes, things like that. I want to see how they perform this week in week 2, how that offense progresses. If Thibodeau plays, I'm definitely going to be watching him. But I'm going to be watching the battle on the interior. We both like Thayer Munford in the draft, and we thought he might be bumped out to tackle this year, but they kept him at guard, which caught my attention. So if he's going to play guard and stay guard, he's not going to be a day 1 pick in my opinion. There's a couple really good guards in this draft that I think are better than him, and guard's not as prestigious of a position as tackle. But that being said, I do want to keep watching him, see how he plays on the inside, see where he's going to land, and how high he will go in the draft as a guard, because he still could play tackle, but I think he kind of just probably signed his contract as a guard by playing there yet again. He's a guy I'll be watching. And then another guy that I have on my watch list is the tight end from Ohio State, Ruckert. He's not my favorite, but I think there's a good matchup there with the linebackers and the safeties from Oregon. McKinley, who we already spoke of, Sewell, the underclassman. And I want to see if Ruckert can produce there and what he can do. If Thibodeau's healthy, how does he help block on the edge? Is he going to be worthy of a mid-round flyer there from Ohio State?
Yeah, because it's not just watching Thibodeau, because, we're already pretty sold on him. It's fun to watch him, but, it's more like, how's the O-line holding up against Thibodeau?
Yeah, I love watching. Like for me, if you're watching a guy, when I'm like you name any tackle that we scouted for the last few years or whatnot, I go and I want to watch the game I want to watch the most is who was the best defensive end he blocked. And I want to watch that game 3 times before I watch another game because I don't care how he blocked Joe Blow from, Old Dominion or whoever. I want to see how he was against the Bosa or the Chase Young or the Thibodeau. And if they hold up against that guy, that's going to show you how they're going to be in the NFL more so than the other guys. Another big game this week that I know your friend Joe's probably just getting amped up about is the Iowa State game. There's a lot of prospects in that game. We are
Yeah.
all of us in our business are basically huge fans of Linderbaum, and I love watching him bowl the people out of the way. So that's always fun. But I need to see a bounce back game from Breece Hall. I need the entire Iowa State offense to do something this week because they have 3 guys that are pretty highly rated, and all 3 of them looked pretty subpar in week 1.
Yeah. I mean, I think Iowa opened some eyes. My eyes, maybe not Joe's eyes, but I didn't think they were great. I think they're a top 25 team, a couple losses during the season, a good bowl, but man, they looked scary, I mean, so that was really impressive. I mean, what they destroyed Michael Penix Jr. So I guess that scouting report that was kind of low on him
Might have been kind of right.
looks like it was on, pretty accurate. And yeah, I don't know how I think Brock Purdy's not going to look very good against that defense either. So, I mean, but I definitely want to see more kind of the line again. It's just fun watching Linderbaum play. See if anyone can do anything against him because
Yeah, and
that'll be impressive.
Iowa State has some talent on the defense side of the ball too, and like Rose, McDonald, they have some guys, but they just did not look good in week 1. Iowa, on the other hand, like you said, did. The line looked good as usual for Iowa. I'm a big fan of Iowa's offensive linemen. Usually, their tight ends are usually pretty highly ranked.
Oh, they've got great tight ends.
And I love their cover. I love they play that zone defense, and they've done a pretty good job of it for years. I love a lot of the guys that come out of there. And Riley Moss, I think he's a 5th-year senior. He might be a senior or 5th-year senior. He stepped up, had 2 picks, played really well, caught my attention as somebody that might be a sleeper for us to talk about later on in the year, and I jotted him down. I've seen him in the past, but it's just a game I'm excited about. But mostly, like I said, Linderbaum all the way. And I need to see Breece Hall do something because I had him as my number 1 back. I'm not taking him off my number 1 back, but if he keeps putting up 26 carries for 20 whatever carries he had for 60 yards, and other guys are putting up 6 for 110, hence your guy, he's not going to stay number 1. He has to produce.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we all expect Breece Hall to be very good, but, who knows? I guess that Iowa defense sure looks stout. So it will be interesting to see him run against them and see if they, can stop them, because I do think they'll stop Brock Purdy. So there's going to be a lot on Breece Hall.
Yeah, he's got to carry the weight for them, in my opinion. And if he can do that, he's going to show that he's a true bell cow. But if he can't, I think he's going to kind of fall under the radar. Not under the radar. Change my words. Apologize. He's going to fall a little bit. Teams are going to notice a few more explosive guys, splash play players. And he's not going to be the guy at the top of the draft. He'll still be a good player. Don't get me wrong. He has talent. But when we watch college and we watch guys their freshman year, their sophomore year, a lot of these guys go out and they ball out, and then they kind of plateau. And if you're drafting a guy that's already hit his peak, and you have another guy that you can draft that's got a year or 2 of growth ahead of him, he could become better than that guy. And that's what I'm worried about with Breece Hall right now when we talk about the Walkers and the Charbonnet, however you said his name.
I think it's Charbonneau.
I'm not
Charbonnet.
good with names, so hey, that guy with that face.
Either.
But those guys could start jumping over a guy like Breece Hall, or even the other top backs we talked about, like a Spiller, or you know what I'm saying. They can just go because teams see that there's still more there, more potential, where another guy's kind of plateaued. And if you show you're plateaued, that's never good. Any other games, Joan?
Man, those were the two games I was
All
most
right.
excited about.
One under the radar
Oh,
game.
Idaho, of course, just to throw it in there.
Well, I'm going to go even worse than that.
68-0, Simon Fraser.
Oh, I saw one of my favorite posts all week on the good old Facebook was somebody said to you, who was Simon Fraser and why was he playing a whole team by himself? And I laughed way too hard at that joke. I must say dad jokes win me over. And if you would have seen me, you probably have been like, why are you laughing so hard? But I thought it was a funny
Hey,
one.
we showed them. And
On
I
your
think we got
Idaho.
we got Indiana this week, I believe.
Well, if you can do what Iowa did, you might win 2 in a row.
We're going to take them down.
Let's move a little bit further east in Idaho and go over to Pocatello, where Idaho State's at. Idaho State plays Nevada this week. And very quietly, we talked about quarterbacks not playing well. Carson Strong is a smaller school quarterback that a lot of people are really high on. He hasn't looked phenomenal, but he hasn't looked bad. He's done everything you've asked of him. He has a strong arm. He's accurate, and he plays for Nevada. So that's a game I'm going to be watching. We're not going to see Carson Strong play against the Oklahomas and the Clemsons and the Alabamas this year. So we're going to have to see him play against what we see him play against. But that means he's got to be accurate all year. He's got to make the plays. He's got to make the right read. He's got to see the open receiver. And so far, he's done that through most of his career. But it's not even Carson Strong. I'm really I'm high on him. I think he's got potential. I don't think he's the next superstar quarterback in the NFL, but he has a place in the NFL. But his wide receiver, Romeo Doubs, is a wide receiver I've been keeping an eye on for a while. And I just keep watching him. He had 80 or 90 yards this week and a touchdown. He only had like 60 catches for 1,000 yards last year. He could be one of those guys. And we know wide receivers are deep. They're always deep now the last few years. And you see some guys go in the 3rd round, 4th round. Heck, there's a guy that went in the 7th round this year that I think is going to be a legitimate NFL player. Michael Strachan from the Colts. And I really like Daubs. He has stood out on me. I've watched quite a bit of their film because of him. And man, I'm pretty high on this kid. So he's going to be somebody else that if you guys like a wide receiver or your team needs a wide receiver later on in the year and you don't want to take one in the 1st or 2nd round, look at this kid from Nevada, Romeo Doubs. He's a baller.
Yeah, and I mean, Nevada has produced plenty of talent over the years, too. You know, these small schools, they produce some quality guys quite often,
Yeah.
and Nevada's pretty good. I mean, so I did forget, I should have talked a little about Washington.
Oh, don't remind me.
Offense, no good. Defense, good. Offense, yikes. It's a big week for the Mountain West Conference, as they obviously lost to Montana. So, which Montana is a fantastic, FCS school, or as I still call them, I just do 1AA. That's
me too. You're
it
not
was that
alone
way
there,
for
bud.
25 years. So that's just, but FCS school, they're, multiple championships, one of the best FCS schools that there is. Yes. Top 25 team shouldn't be losing to an FCS school. That's no other way to say that. So, yeah, Washington offense might want to drop those players down a little bit. But again, defense looked good.
I want to go out on a limb here, though, and say that when you and I have been pretty high. I've been really high on a few Huskies. So that being said, I do want to defend myself here a little bit because I feel like you just took a jab at me.
They lost
Maybe
to
not
Montana,
purposely,
man.
might have been subconsciously, but I do want to point something out. In this game, the offense looked pretty pitiful. I agree, but the leading receiver was Cade Otton, who you have pretty high in your board for a tight end. He had 8 catches for 80 yards.
He's good.
Not a bad showing for a tight end. The other thing I'm going to defend myself on here is that we don't really talk about any other offensive players from Washington as NFL talent right now, outside of an offensive lineman who I actually didn't watch this game all the way, so I don't know how he fared, and I wish I had watched it so I could defend him if I had the right to right now. But I'm very high on their defense, and they did only give up 1 touchdown. So, I mean, when you really look at it, they only gave up 1 touchdown. That's saying, okay, maybe the defense isn't that bad. I like their linebacker, Ucla Lsu. They have a defensive end that I'm huge on, ZTF, but he's out right now. And then obviously I like their corner, McDuffie. But, I mean, they only gave up 100 yards passing.
Yeah, no, their defense.
I mean, they only gave up like 210 yards total.
Yeah, their defense. You should win that game, 10 out of 10 times if your defense, that's what your defense gives you.
So I'm just saying, we're not wrong. We're not wrong on our assessment here.
That's true. It's just, man, what yes, I do like Kate Ogden. Yeah, one guy who had a good game. There you go.
I'm just saying, we might miss sometimes on saying this team might be good because, well, we can't control how a team performs. Yeah. But we're pretty good at saying this is how this guy's going to perform. And we didn't really miss. I know there's a whole year ahead of us.
Sad day for everyone in Seattle.
Oh, Huskies fans are so mad. So upset right now. They're pretty bitter. I don't really know that there's anything else coming up this week that I'm really dying to see. Honestly, there's a lot of games that are going to kind of be give me games. But those games are important. Like Clemson's got a hammy game. They need to get that offense moving. They need to get Ross and Latson and those guys involved so we can actually see what they're capable of. The Missouri-Kentucky game is another one that's kind of on my radar. They had each team had a couple players that played pretty well this week. Utah-BYU. I think Utah is the better team nowadays, but I really like Devin Lloyd, the linebacker down there. And that's a good rivalry game. I don't know if you've ever been to that one. I've been to that game a couple times.
I haven't been there,
Provo, and it's a fun atmosphere.
Are you concerned about Clemson's quarterback being able to get the ball to Ross? Do you think that could hold him back?
Not. No.
Or do you think it was just, Georgia just smothered him?
I think it was a mixture of a lot of things. I think he's a good quarterback. He showed that in a couple games he played in last year. I think he struggled with the fact that, I didn't really think about this going into the game, and I think we should have. This is the first time, for him, he's ever played in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of Georgia fans there. Well, that's a lot different between 65,000 screaming fans at a Georgia-Clemson game.
Whatever.
But I think that had an effect. I think the play calling was dumbed down because, and I think this happened to Daniels and DJ. I think both offenses were dumbed down because there were some players out. I think Clemson's offensive line is not very good at all, and nobody's been talking about it.
Didn't look like it.
They weren't good last year, and they lost their best offensive lineman in Carmen in the draft.
Yeah.
So I'm worried about that, but I'm not even really worried about seeing Ross go out and ball out. I just need Ross to show me he's healthy. He's already showed me his talent level. So this season for me, if I'm a scout, is saying, is this guy healthy? Is he past the injury? Can he play like he's not hurt anymore? And I can see that in their small games. I think they play Youngstown State this week. Hold on, I got it right here. I wrote it up earlier. Oh, maybe
Penguins.
Is that who it is?
Oh, I don't know. I just know that's Youngstown State's. At least it was their mascot.
That is Youngstown's, but I can't remember who's playing them. Oh, they play SC State. Michigan State plays Youngstown.
No.
But so I mean, there's some games here that I think the talent level drops off for Clemson. They should be able to put something together against SC State. Georgia Tech's not going to be a real challenge, I don't think. Then they've got NC State, Boston College, and Syracuse. So I just need to see Ross out there on the field playing like he's not hurt, playing like he's not afraid to get hurt. And I think they'll get that put back together. So I'll be happy there.
All right.
I think Florida State could beat Clemson after watching Florida State this week, though.
There you go.
God, their schedule's so weak. Sorry, I had to. That's pathetic for a team that's always as highly ranked as they are. Nothing else I think in my notes of anybody. The Notre Dame guys, obviously, they have some real talent there. Jarrett Patterson, the center, senior, really inexperienced line around him. I'm really watching him this year. I see people saying he's a first-round talent. No, he's not. Tyler Linderbaum is by far the best center in this draft, And as there's 2 centers that go in the first round, I'll get a tattoo. I mean, I don't know. It'll be crazy. But he is a good center. He's a very experienced captain of the offensive line. And I'm not even so much concerned about how he blocks this year, as I really want to watch how he coaches these young kids up and how he helps them see the play recognition ahead of time and see how good of a captain of the line he is. Because if he shows that, he's my type of player. Another running back, Kyran Williams, who I've read a lot about, seen a lot about him. Hadn't really watched him as much. He sure is explosive. I know he didn't put up huge numbers this week, but man, his change of direction, his feet quickness, his foot speed, he's a special athletic talent. And I think it's about time to start putting together my way too early top 5s. And he definitely is in my top 5 running backs.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I want to see at least a couple more games myself, but I get it. They're way too early. Because, I mean, that's the thing. I don't want to be like, oh, Charbonneau, running back 1, because he had 2 good games.
You can put him in there and drop him out of it 2 weeks.
Well, it's just that it's not even the numbers. He runs very well.
Yeah.
But, again, I don't want to overreact after 2 weeks.
Is there anybody that we had in our top 50 that you say does not belong there? Anybody we don't have in it that says they belong there right now?
Might be a little too early to overreact. You know what I mean?
I like overreactions. That's what I do. I'm a passionate
I'm not an
man.
overreactor.
Well, that's why we balance each other out, Jonah.
See, last year after week 1, Tom Brady lost and the Patriots won, and everyone said, "Oh my God, it's all Bill Belichick. He's the best."
Well,
we needed a little more than 1 week.
As an avid not Brady fan, I don't care if Brady wins or loses. I'm still on the Belichick train over Brady.
You're on the wrong side.
I will say I wanted him to win the Super Bowl, though, really, really badly. I did root for them in the Super Bowl last year. So,
yeah.
But I think that's the first time I've ever rooted for Tom Brady.
Nah, I need 2 more weeks to really get my feet wet.
Yeah, and I was more excited with a lot of the matchups in week 1 than we're going to see in week 2. Week 2, there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of should-be victories. There was this season, there were 5 ranked matchups in week 1, the most ever.
Yeah.
So it was actually kind of fun.
It was an interesting week. And I mean, again, even as I said, Fresno State's not they're not an FCS team. They're a real football program who produces real NFL talent and recruits real athletes to play there. So, even though they weren't ranked, Oregon playing them, it's not a bad game.
Yeah, I'll have the UCLA Fresno State game on my watch list for sure next week.
Can't wait. Charbonneau and Mosby.
If it's not on for you, let me know and I'll see if it's on I have a major sports package and I can throw it on my DVR and give you my login information.
Nice. Well, I'll find it legally or otherwise.
Oh, well, it's legal. I pay for streaming. It's a difference.
No.
Fubo. Everybody, use Fubo. $65 a month.
There you go. Fubo, sponsor us.
Yeah, and I'm also drinking Pendleton Rye, just so you know.
Diet Pepsi.
I think we're going to try to come to you guys each week. We're going to try to start kind of having more of a set list of what we want to talk about. If you guys have anything you want to hear about, drop it in the comments. Like and subscribe if you watch. We will be working on draft prospect reports all year long, trying to bring you some different type of information, different angles. We've applied for some press passes. We were accepted for quite a few. We were accepted to the Hall of Fame game by the NFL this year. And then a lot of things have changed because they've kind of done a 180 on the COVID protocols again. The NFL is not letting press into the locker rooms now. So we're not going to bring you as much in-depth, in up-close reporting as we were going to try to. So we apologize for that. But we'll do our best to do what we can for you guys and be a real place to get your information from a true fan that knows what they're talking about and actually goes out and, beats the pavement and tries to talk to the players and talk to people and talk to the scouts as well, rather than just giving you some random advice.
Yeah, and I will say, even though, yeah, the in-person stuff's definitely gonna be a little less. I mean, again, especially every year is weird from now on, I guess. This year's plenty weird already, so. But, with that, making the connections with the athletic departments, having, we'll be able to get good information from, directly from the athletic departments, even if we won't be standing there.
Yeah, it's just a little bit different. We appreciate everybody kind of working through with us.
Yep.
Well, Jonah, do you have anything else tonight?
No, I think that's it. I just, excited about my early sleepers and got to find some more deep prospects.
All right. Well, everybody out there, we appreciate your time and thanks for joining us. Don't forget to check back in next week to hear what we have to say about the week 2 and 2.5 games and what big games and prospects we'll be looking at in week 3. Take care.
Idaho for the upset.